Hey, howdy. I bet you thought I forgot about this game, huh? Well, I didn't. In fact, I beat the game. My original plan was to record myself playing it, but everything went wrong. Like, everything. There was a vacuum cleaner outside, I could hear, like, I think it was a lawnmower outside, the aspect ratio was wrong, the game was too quiet, it was chaos and madness. But I beat the entire game. Which means I can do the challenges. Now, I've already done a good chunk of these, but I'm just gonna do them again. Because I think they're fun. And it's sort of a Peggle-esque system, where you get a certain amount of time, you have to reach a certain par score, and then beyond that a certain ace score. And there's not really gonna be stakes until I get to the levels that I haven't beaten yet. But I happen to think that these are a lot easier than the levels in the adventure mode. But again, I felt kind of bad that I hadn't uploaded recently, combined with the fact that I tried to record this and it was a failure. So I just figured I'd pull myself up by my figurative bootstraps and just record this anyway, just in a different context. But I hope things have been good for y'all. Things have been very funny for me. Because I've been talking with friends about a certain game that has been sweeping the internet, and not exactly for good reasons, that game being Pal World. Man, young people on the internet are really bad at figuring out, young people on the internet are really bad at realizing that they've been fleeced, because that's exactly what's happening. Because for the uninitiated, Pal World was announced back during the Game Awards, I believe? And the concept is fairly simple. It's a combination of Pokemon and Ark Survival Evolved, but the Pokemon have guns. You're basically... I think the general gist of it is that you're counter poachers. There are people that are trying to poach pals, and you are trying to either poach the poachers or just bring them to justice in general. It's a decent concept. The thing is, it has a myriad of problems already. It's not in the most stable state, but whatever. It's Steam in the year of our Lord 2024. Games come onto the early access scene kind of malformed all the time. So why is it a problem here? Well, we gotta talk about our good friend artificial intelligence, because the main point of contention with this game that has some people very interested is a while ago, one of the main creators of the game boasted that they had a technology that some sort of like generative AI that could be used to make fake Pokemon designs. And there is reason to believe, in a lot of people's eyes, that they're using that technology to spoof Pokemon designs. So already, that's a problem. That can get you... that is enough to send Nintendo's lawyers after your ass. Now, naturally, it's not that easy on Nintendo's end to just, oh, that's good enough, now we can sue you. The only reason they were able to take down Pokemon Uranium as swiftly and as effectively as they did was because Pokemon Uranium literally used the Pokemon logo, which that's actual copyright infringement, and I won't try and defend that. Like, there are moments with stuff like that where you can't help but facepalm, even after the, like, initial wave of outrage has passed. Like with what happened with the Dolphin, that Dolphin ended up coming under fire by Nintendo, not because they're a GameCube emulator, but because they started packaging, or they tried to release the game on, they tried to release the emulator on Steam. You know, charging money. And also literally included proprietary Nintendo software, because it was the software used for the Dolphin. Because for those who are unaware, Dolphin was not the code name per se, but it was the name under the hood for the GameCube. And the reason why it's called the Dolphin emulator is that the dev kits for GameCube games were called Dolphins. Or were called Dolphin or Dolphins, I don't know. I forget the specifics off the top of my head, but that's where that correlation comes from. And with that, I mean, beyond the obvious of, come on, like, Nintendo, shush. But at the same time, that was just Dolphin being dumbasses. I won't try and defend them for that one. So how does this tie into Pal World? Well, the other problem is that it is not just generative AI. There have been comparisons made between the models that are in the game and models ripped from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And they are shockingly, almost suspiciously close. Now, I'm not going to throw off any wild accusations yet, but the article that I was reading had one of the people that they interviewed about it was just like a 3D model designer and rigger, and he was talking about how, like, there have been cases where he's worked with a team given previous models and trying to, like, make a upscaled version of it or like a modernized version of the model, and even when they know exactly what they're basing their model on, they still get very different results than the original model. So the fact that it's that close is kind of extremely suspicious. So it's not, I don't know if it's enough for Nintendo to seek any sort of legal action, but again, we'll have to see. The main reason why I'm kind of schadenfreuding this a bit is that I don't know if I've mentioned this explicitly, but I am not a fan of the general Steam audience, because they're all teenagers and they're all a bunch of they're just a bunch of assholes, frankly. I don't have much nice to say about them. I generally value the feedback of a game's community by the number of clown emojis in the Steam reviews. And damn, there are a lot of them in the reviews for Pal World. Specifically on negative reviews. There was also, I saw a review that was, it was something along the lines of, guy made a mildly negative review about the game, and then got harassed on a different social media outlet after people who were upset at his negative review found his other social media accounts. Things that, you know, normal, rational people do. So, like, that is, stuff like that just makes me lose all credit for that I would have given to those communities. And at that rate, I just, no. Like, I would have given, like, a tiny moniker of respect to them before? No, none. Fuck him up, Nintendo. That's all I'm gonna say. It's the same kind of opinion that I have of, what's the best word for it, because I was about to say Bethesda fans, but it's not. It's not just Bethesda. It's the kinds of people who solemnly swear that they will only play one series of games for the rest of their life. FromSoft fans have this like pocket of people in their ranks as well, and I don't really. The thing is, I don't really hold it against FromSoft in general because it's a small pocket of a larger community. But something like Palworld has not proven itself yet that it has positive aspects to its community. So time will tell. Time will tell on that front. But Bethesda kind of has a similar problem that, like, if you genuinely like Skyrim and are willing to deal with the nonsense that is, you know, how buggy and jank Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls series and Fallout series can be, if you're able to see past that and enjoy the game of your own merit, I'm very jealous, I must say. Because I've always heard that Fallout was a really good series and that New Vegas in particular was absolutely incredible. Never got into it. But the people that I've heard that talk about Fallout always kind of come across as pretentious. At least to me. The same kind of shtick as like Borderlands as well. That, like, if you can find ways to enjoy Gearbox's sense of humor, more power to you. I can't. I tried, and for what it's worth, I played Borderlands long after a lot of people had stopped playing Borderlands, and a lot of the reason people played it was to play it with friends. I got like a little over an hour into Borderlands 2, and I just stopped and went to go do something else. I thought it was miserable. I thought it was interesting enough, it had interesting enough gunplay, the visual style was kind of cool, but the writing is just so abrasive. It's got the yick problem where it's like, hey, wouldn't it be so cool and quirky, and what if we made jokes about how we're a video game? Wouldn't that be epic? It's a kind of self-awareness that just doesn't really hold up well. I'm not even gonna say it ages well. Or I'm not even gonna say it doesn't age well, it just doesn't hold up well in general, in my eyes. Cause like, there's nothing wrong with self-referential or meta humor. Nothing at all. Plenty of games do that stuff really, really well. Like Undertale comes to mind for that. That does that kind of stuff extremely well because Toby Fox is a good writer. He knows how to write jokes that are actually funny. But there's a line in the sand between an actually well-written joke of that respect and the story equivalent of one of those Like a Boss t-shirts. Maybe that's a bit much, but I don't know. I did not have very positive experiences with the writing. I've also heard from a friend that he suspects, going back to Palworld for a second, he suspects a moderate to large amount of astroturfing when it comes to that game, and honestly, I could see it. I'm not on Reddit much anymore, much at all, frankly. But people who make media that is seen on Reddit, these people aren't stupid, but the people who browse Reddit are a little more easily fooled. like, what comes to mind is, I don't remember which Fast and the Furious movie it is. They all blend together for me because I've never really gotten into that series. It is... Fast and the Furious is, from what I understand, like the quintessential American film franchise, for better or for worse. And it has all of the trappings and quite a few positives from what I've heard, but that's not what I'm referring to specifically. I'm referring to the astroturfing. So around the time that the newest Fast and Furious was coming out, there was this random influx of memes to Reddit about family out of basically nowhere. And this isn't the first time that someone has tried this. Another instance that comes to mind is the Netflix show Bird Box. They pulled kind of a similar stunt, but it kind of worked because the jokes that they made were actually decently funny. Like, I'll give whatever Netflix executive came up with that idea, did it with a good amount of grace. The jokes were genuinely kind of funny. They used it wasn't just, hey, look at this image that's vaguely related to our new show you should watch. It was genuinely, like, it was cleverly constructed. Whatever intern came up with that deserves a raise, because it was genuinely well done. This, on the other hand, was so freaking obvious that even Reddit caught on that it was happening. And I don't mean Reddit top brass, of course. Not like they're gonna do anything about it. But people started shaming other people for reposting the family memes because it was pretty obvious at that point that it was an AstroTurf. I'm trying to think of other examples. I can't think of many examples off the top of my head, but there were definitely examples. It's just, you know, the subtlety varies from product to product. Some of them were super obvious, and some of them were, well, basically so well done that I didn't even notice. Because in the era of memes, and the era of endlessly reposted images that can be adapted to any purpose, the dream of any corporation is to have an image that's emblematic of your product and just have that become embedded in internet culture forever. Like, that is the golden goose of modern marketing. To have some joke or some meme that's produced as part of an ad campaign and have it work that well. It's the modern equivalent of a TV commercial, a slogan or some gimmick inside the commercial becoming a commonplace thing. Like a where's the beef kind of thing, where it's just people just say it offhand. It doesn't matter that it's not it doesn't matter that they're not in a Wendy's commercial. They're gonna say it anyway because now it's just in the common vernacular. And there's plenty of examples of that. I can't think of too many of them because I wasn't really around when so many of them were prevalent. Like Winner Winner What's for Dinner is another one. The other white meat comes to mind. What else? Also, I just realized I'm going to accidentally skip levels because all of these are cleared, and I've been meaning to check which level it is, and it's worked sometimes and not other times. So if I accidentally skip a level, it's my bad. Hunga. Though I do realize, meditating on it a little bit more, I shouldn't be so quick to judge an entire community based on the actions of a few, because that is... It's such a common mistake on the internet that people kind of just do it, even acknowledging that they've made a mistake. Like, oh, that's just how this community acts. That's just how this political party acts. And, well, congratulations, you've just created a stereotype. And we can argue all day about how true that stereotype is. That's not the important thing. The important thing is that you've made it up. True or not, anyone who hears that is going to have to either rebuke it in their own mind or agree with it, and now they also are stuck with that stereotype. And it's especially problematic, I mean, I'm just talking about social psychology at this point. Once a stereotype has firmly established itself in someone's head, it is really hard to break, given some specific conditions. Like, think about how racism works. The primary way that racism, like, reaches a point where people openly believe racist things in society is when they don't interact with the target very often. It's the reason why xenophobia is so... people are so quick to build up xenophobia because it's really... This is going to sound awful, but it's really easy to become xenophobic. Because you can just talk about, oh, these people from another country, and whether or not you've actually been to that country is another story entirely. And that's the thing that's amazing about the internet, is that it's so much harder to build up those stereotypes nowadays, because barring intentional ignorance, congratulations, you have this irrational belief about a group of people. You can just go and find those people and you will quickly come to the realization that, well, it's just incorrect. It's just incorrect, and from there you can come to your own conclusion. And that seems to be the larger problem, is the idea of cognitive dissonance, that you have data that suggests one thing and you just go back to believing the prior belief anyway, for one reason or another. Whether it's loyalty to a faction or loyalty to a specific person and their school of thought. That's where a lot of modern racism sort of comes into play. It's not necessarily about lack of interaction. It's more about specific interaction that you've cherry-picked in your own mind to create that stereotype. And the trouble is that, again, this is going to sound bad at first, but that kind of behavior is very, like, natural and animalistic. Because how does an animal react to those kinds of situations? What an animal does is an animal, at face value, sees something with a certain set of characteristics and makes some judgment based on that characteristic, or that set of characteristics. Now, the problem, as you might already guess, is that humans are, well, at least according to me, are more advanced than your average farm animal. So they should be able to differentiate between very, like, surface-level stereotypes and actual rational decisions made about people and about just things in their environment. And most of the time I feel like people do, but it's specific situations bring out bad tendencies in people in general. Whether it's like inebriation or like mounting peer pressure, sort of like social dilemmas of assuming that everyone else in the room is holds just as strong beliefs as you. Even if the beliefs aren't inherently wrong. If it's just like some mundane belief, you're much more likely to believe something if you're under the assumption that everyone else in the room also believes it. Even if no one else in the room actually does. It's how paranoia works. If everyone assumes that everyone else is lying, then everyone else may as well be lying. Because just by virtue of no one trusting anyone else, it calls into question what a lie and what a truth really is. The whole table believes in a different definition of truth, and so, for all intents and purposes, the definition has been changed. These kinds of like definitions and social whatevers really only they're all in theory, and that's kind of the scary thing. Is that you can say and believe everything you want to believe about how people interact. But just by the chaotic nature of human interaction, there's a pretty good chance that something random is going to come up and completely throw everything out of balance. And something that comes to mind for that is political polarization. On paper, political polarization is not that big of an issue. Because, like, banding together with other people with common interests, that's a fairly natural, mundane thing, at face value. But then you factor in more crazy extraneous factors, and things get a lot more concerning. Factor in things like how certain media outlets specifically engineer their stuff to make people mad, and to intentionally align themselves with specific views and specific parties, because it'll get those people with specific views and parties to come back more and more. Even if those views are destructive, or racist, or incur whatever else, now you have a completely different variable in the equation. You didn't account for human greed as a factor, and now the entire system is wrong. So what I'm saying is the entire thing that I've been building up towards is bogus. Because there are any number of factors that could be introduced that completely dash anything that I just said. So the question remains then, how do you apply anything to any situation if chaos theory is just has a chance to introduce something stupid to the situation that makes it harder to process, or impossible to process? It's the same kind of logic as how to use statistical averages to influence your decisions. That it's not logical to use statistical averages at face value because they're averages, of course. And you'll never be able to get to a coarse enough grain where they are 100% going to be true or false X% of the time. If we're talking real-world situations, there's never going to be a situation where no matter what happens, there's always a 50-50 chance that a coin lands heads and a coin lands tails. That's just not how the real world works. You can guesstimate, but there's always got to be that moniker of, okay, this could happen, this could not happen. I could be completely wrong about everything that I've ever known, and that's okay. There's an element of surprise and there's an element of spice to life that is very, simultaneously very fun and very scary. Because, I mean, in a way, life's a lot more fun when you don't know what's coming, right? This has been one of my better blab sessions, I realize. We started talking about Pal World and we ended talking about political parties. I guess that's how these discussions go. I'm enjoying these simple levels while I still can, because eventually they do add levels that have 5 or even, I think, up to 6. It makes me happy that I'm not on social media of any kind. Because I know when I say that I realize I often come across as a contrarian. It's like, oh, I believe my own things. I don't go on social media and look at what other people are saying. I realize I come across kind of callous when I say that, but I do genuinely think that there's merit in that sort of thought process. To have your own thought process. Because that kind of groupthink can be really dangerous. I was just talking about how, like, extraneous factors can be bad. What larger extraneous factor is there than the internet? The world's biggest peer pressure machine. Specifically designed to keep people angry and to keep people coming back to it over and over and over again to create a cycle of infinite growth for the creator of the app or the creator of the social media platform. I've heard that that's the gist of the social network, but I've never actually seen the social network. I gotta get around to it at some point. But it's nice to have a web of friends who are on social media. Which feels very contradictory in a way, but you know, obviously if I stick my head up my own rump and never listen to any news, I'm just gonna live in ignorance. But having a portal to the outside world that I can choose to listen to and sort of like discuss things with as they become relevant, it gives me a much better view of the situation than if I was just on the outside occasionally looking up the words recent news on Google to see the most recent news. I'm kind of hoping this acts as my... I'm kind of hoping that this acts as my way to kick my weird burnout. Because I think the way that I phrased it in the Tukey video, like, it's not burnout in the traditional sense, it's almost like reverse burnout. That with normal burnout, you keep like going, you keep pushing yourself, going, and then you just collapse. It's like inertia. That you've just been barreling down the road, you keep barreling, and then you hit a wall. And the wall just stops you cold. And now you need to put in so much more effort than you were before to, well, pull yourself out of the wall and get yourself back on the track. And that takes a while. But what I realized was happening was that, like, I was working at a pretty steady pace. I was getting a little bit, with Tukey especially, I was getting a little bit tired. I was getting a little bit fatigued, but it wasn't anything that I would consider to be burnout. And then I ended up taking a break, not of my own accord, just because I went back home, and I didn't have really the time or the space to do Tukey for a while. I got back, tried to get back on track, and then again, it's like inertia. I was just completely motionless, and I had to put in that much more effort to get myself started again. It's a really weird feeling. Because at the height of it, I didn't even have to think about it. I would just make Tukey videos. I would just make Tukey, and I would make videos on Suits and on Yik, just because I feel like it. There wasn't really I didn't push myself because I had a specific reason, I just thought it was fun. And maybe I get more subscribers, maybe I finish a series and I get to move on to something else. I kind of just did it because I thought it was fun. But that sloth, unfortunately, meant that, especially like once I finished with Ennui, I had something that occupied myself for the bulk of winter break that was not video related, and then when I was done with that, I kind of crashed. But it wasn't even, I didn't even make videos for that. I made a grand total of 2. One of them was the original one showing off that I was making the mod, and the other one was me showing off the items, and neither of them were very fatiguing. It was a completely unrelated aspect that was tiring me out, which was, you know, writing the code and debugging it, because oh god, that was quite a trek to debug. And between the everything that eventually happened, from the mod doing decently well to eventually being featured as a standalone video on Lazy Matman's channel, which I'm very, very thankful for. Even if half the video is talking about him finding a bug that fills the room with coins and getting himself killed because of it. But whatever, I made my peace with it. The bug is now gone. I only get a little bit chafed when the some of his viewers in the comments ask, "Hey, can you put it back? Can you put the bug back? That was really funny." No. I appreciate you coming to show your feedback. No. Ah. But I think my resolution for this semester, not even a New Year's resolution, because, you know, it's meant to be a thing that I'll do all of this year, not for the first few days, is I want to like do more in-depth things with this channel. I want to do more streams, I want to do edited videos. I'm still doing the edited video, by the way, it's just taking a second. Oops. Okay. It's just taking a second. I swear I'm working on it. I had to scrap it and completely rewrite it, so, oops. But having a video like this where I can just dump my thoughts is it's very cathartic. And that's part of the reason why I want to do streams more, is that streams are a great vehicle for that. I can just do something mindless like this, talk with chat, and then just generally chill for a few hours. The only thing that I need to make sure I do is I need to look up how to time people out through OBS. Pretty sure there's a chat command for it, but I don't know it offhand, because I've never had to. And I'm hoping it stays that way, but you know. I'm sure there's eventually going to be someone who's just kind of a tool. I need to go put them in the corner for a little bit. But so far, I think the worst that I've gotten is... I've gotten one comment, or... I can think of 3 examples, but they're not really, like... None of them are particularly bad, it's more just amusing. The worst example I can think of is for the mod... For the gay pride mod. Which, I'm gonna be completely real. I am straight as an arrow. I mainly just made that mod as a meme. Because yeah, har gay pride. No one, I've never seen anyone make like a high quality version of that joke. So I was like, hey, screw it, let me try. And it was a headache to make. And there were some people that took rather serious offense to it, which was very funny. About a little under a week goes by, and now I know what gay panic means, because there was someone in the comments that went on this super long tirade about how, like, oh, put the gay symbolism in the game with the child, and hiding the sausage, and whatever the fuck else. I'm just looking at it like, my dude, I made this mod in like a day as a joke. There is literally a challenge in the Binding of Isaac called Pride Day that makes this exact same joke. What are you talking about? There's like that, there was, uh-oh. I think it's this level next? Yeah, it's this level next. There was one person in, I don't remember what stream, that was asking like, what are you doing? And the way that it was phrased, I initially thought like, oh, well, you're being quite rude, but I think it was literally just the way that it was phrased. My original assumption was that it was salty, but it wasn't. It was just someone genuinely asking, and it just came off a little strong. And the last one is a bit more of a special case. The case of the Yick fanatic. So, somehow I keep finding random reasons to talk about Yick again, but this is just such an amazing story that I can't help but tell it. So, when I was doing the first stream of Yick, usually the way that YouTube comments work is there are, if you've ever noticed like on a smaller video, there's like a few comments that you can't see, and most of the time those are deleted comments, and they're either deleted by the creator or they're just deleted by YouTube themselves because the comment is too long or has hyperlinks or something like that. And the YouTuber on their end can, depending on the circumstance, can choose to let the comment be seen. I think with super long comments, sometimes it just doesn't let you, and that was the case with this one. But someone dropped a fucking essay on me when I was playing Yik, trying their damnedest to talk about how, like, the deep symbolism of the game and how I was straight up wrong about some of the facts regarding the similarities to the elevator girl to Elisa Lam, which, to be fair, I was in that respect. But the more I read it, I was just so, like, I was genuinely kind of impressed because this person was so damn passionate. And they weren't being rude at all. It was very much like a matter of fact, like, I feel like you're wrong, here are the reasons why. And I just, like, got into a conversation with them, and the entire conversation, unfortunately, is hidden because it's YouTube, because of YouTube. Had I the ability, I would definitely have it be shown because it was genuinely a really interesting discussion. And looking back, now that I've finished the whole game, I would have a lot more to say adding on to that point. And though, I mean, I doubt they're still watching my stuff after I published my final thoughts on Yik that basically amounted to this game deserves to be left in a dumpster for the next 30 years. I would genuinely want to continue that conversation now that I have the full breadth of what Yik is, and I can fully formulate my thoughts on why I genuinely did not like various aspects of that game. And how its whole, like, overarching thing about it being postmodern fiction kind of just falls flat on its face, in my opinion. And that wasn't really what I talked about in the long-form review. I kind of just talked about, there were a few things that I focused on that I intentionally picked that other people hadn't really touched on, just like how the overall plot is really sloppy in a lot of places, and how the game is so far up its own ass that oftentimes it doesn't get its point across well, and there are some aspects of the game that come across as extremely cocky and self-centered, but nothing about the things that people normally talk about with the game, because, you know, those points have already been explained by other people in great depth, and I generally agree with those points. Things like how the combat is super sluggish, and Alex isn't a likable character even after his supposed redemption arc, and how the story in general just lifts a bunch of stuff from a bunch of different places and expects it all to gel together, and it doesn't really work. And the game desperately wants to be a JRPG of a different ilk, something like Persona, and it just doesn't come across very well. Like, all of those points have already been answered by other people, and I more or less agree with all of them. But my review was more specific to the things that I fixated on when I thought about my playthrough of the game. Kaonga. Oh. Also, I made an offhand comment when I was playing Zuma's Revenge. You might notice every once in a while I miss a shot that I definitely should have hit. That's because I'm not really looking directly at the balls, because anyone who's played a first-person shooter knows, especially a game like Enter the Gungeon comes to mind. There might be someone out there who looks directly at the cursor at all times. I am not one of those kinds of people. I just point in a direction, and eventually I'm good enough with it that I can just aim and shoot without really looking directly at where my cursor is, and it'll go there. And when you're trying to do this game fast, or when you need things to be done fast, rather, it helps. It helps a lot. Because then you can just look out of the corner of your eye and find things in groups of 2 and then deal with them as quickly as they appear. Oh, yes. Eka kahunga. Excuse me. I have a thermos here of well, day-old green tea. It's still good enough to drink, but it's starting to like it's starting to sour a little bit. So what I've noticed with tea is that, like, tea doesn't really, if it's not exposed to the open air, tea doesn't really go bad. It's just that tea gets more and more acidic the longer you leave it in a closed container, to the point that it's just completely undrinkable. But it's never gotten to a point where I've drank it and then, like, I've drank tea that's been around, that's been, like, sitting in the fridge for a few days in a closed container, and I've, like, it's made me feel sick. It's just that the longer it's been there, the more sour it is. The more acidic it is. And this isn't even that bad, because it's green tea, and green tea is generally pretty basic by caffeinated drink standards. I think some green tea even has a pH above 7, if I've heard correctly. I don't know if this stuff is. I'm pretty sure this stuff is still slightly acidic. But it's better than leaving black coffee. Unstrained black coffee would probably be, like, genuinely caustic if you leave it in a closed container. Now, don't ask me why you drink unstrained coffee. I guess if you brew your own, and you forget to, I don't know, maybe you forget to, you don't have any coffee filters. So you just pour that shit in the cup and wait. I wouldn't really know. I've never drank that much coffee. Like, I've embraced the third position because there are people who, when they reach college, drink a ungodly amount of coffee. Then there are the people who, once they reach college and need to cram, take Adderall, or Adderall, Ritalin, some equivalent. And it gets the job done, but it also does not do very good things to their body. And the same can be said for having stupid amounts of caffeine when prepping for exams. I have found the third state, where I drink tea instead. Tea is generally pretty mild when it comes to caffeine, but it's got enough that it gets the job done. I think I'll go until the end of this section, and I'll call it. I don't want to completely wreck my voice. I'll save that for the streams. But I've got some, I've got some stuff to do later tonight that I need to get around to. I gotta finish up a balance patch for Ennui and make sure I publish that. There probably won't be a video alongside it because it is just balance patches. General bug fixes and the like. But I am eventually going to make a tainted version for that character for the people who care about that. And it's going to be great, but it's going to take a while. It is going to take a while. Like, irregardless of the fact that I'm kind of burnt out on making Isaac mods in general right now, that is going to be quite the commitment. Because to let y'all in on a little secret for what it's going to be like, so regular old Ennui has a mechanic that the longer you are a specific aspect, you have 8 different aspects to choose from, and you can swap between them at will, the longer you remain as one aspect, the more of a resource called miasma that you build up. And generally, miasma is a negative thing. There are some situations where it's slightly beneficial, but in the long run, it's going to get you killed if you have tons and tons of it. Maybe not get you killed, but it is going to make your life a lot harder. Well, my idea for the tainted version was that instead of using the base form to remove miasma as it's gained over time, you use it to cast spells. I had a truly diabolical idea for a tainted version that would involve basically the way I sort of rationalized it was that if the normal version is Shulk from Smash, or Shulk from Xenoblade, I suppose, as he appears in Smash, then the tainted version would be Hero from Dragon Quest, also as he appears in Smash, and basically do with that information what you will. I'm very excited to work on that. I feel like it's gonna be great. That probably wasn't even par score, huh? Nope. But my plans for the future, besides the obvious, I already kind of talked about this in the Tuki video for today. My plan is to try and diversify the things that I do on this channel a little bit. It's going to be about the same vibe that it usually is. Nothing like crazy mixing it up, but I'm thinking like maybe make some edited videos, do more streams, because I'm really enjoying the streams that I've done so far. And especially if I do multiple streams of the same topic, I feel like I'll be able to draw more people in. Because my issue a lot of the time is that I draw in like 3 people, and they're there for the entire stream, and y'all that are there for those streams, I love y'all, but the more the merrier, as they say. I want to be able to have a stream chat that just has a bunch of people in it. And I fear that after a certain point it would just turn into a daycare, but my viewers are like 99% over the age of 18. I trust y'all. I trust y'all to not do stupid shit, and if you do stupid shit, I have my big hammer. So I'm not completely powerless in this situation. There is no rule against corporal punishment in stream chat. I can't just bonk you with the big fat timeout hammer if I feel like you're being a nuisance. Maybe that was a bad example. Okay, that is me. I just got a buzz on my phone, and I consider that to be a -2 for me making a bad joke. Okay, it's just Discord. Alright. That was just under an hour. Or just over an hour, rather. Cool. Also, I just want to address this. Iron Frog. So, to my understanding, this is just like a gauntlet of I don't know how many levels, and you just keep going until you die. So I kind of want to try this at some point, but it'll have to wait. Because that's all I got for now. I don't want to completely ruin my voice. Thanks so much. Words. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. See you next time.